I'm Dr. William Starsiak. One of my favorite subjects to counsel patients on is mindfulness practices. This is because the benefits they can gain from these practices over the course of their life is tremendous, and they're free. Really, we just need to find some free time, and most of us waste time. If you got a phone, you're probably wasting some time, and it's pretty easy to find 5 minutes to begin some sort of mindfulness practice. So the reason to engage with these would be it's an opportunity to return to baseline. We have so much stuff, we get so distracted, we get so far afield with all of the things in our life that we can lose track of this rejuvenating center, this home base. We can get to the point where we don't even feel comfortable sitting in silence by ourselves, where we become so conditioned to activity that we have to continually distract ourselves, and we don't necessarily even realize that we're doing it. We're just seeking for this kind of agitated, stimulated baseline. So the conscious practice of letting all of that calm down and return to baseline, kind of like if you had a bucket of water with dirt in it and it was stirred up and so it's all muddy, well, it'd be like letting that mud settle down so the water becomes clear. That has a lot of benefit for a lot of different systems. We'll sleep better if we're taking on that practice. We'll have an easier time focusing. We'll have more daytime energy. We'll have better emotional intelligence as well. We'll have a higher threshold for significant pain perception. It helps with modulating pain perception in the central nervous system. We have greater peacefulness. And there are all of these benefits that come out from simply allowing the passive return towards this peaceful baseline that is our nature. All right, we're not having to create something or put some big effort in to try to generate a temporary mind state. This practice is very much a passive return to the original mind state that doesn't rely upon thinking. This is what stumps people so much about this practice of meditation is they want to find a way to get there. They want to find a way to use their thinking and their figuring out capacity to get there. And that's what we do in most of our life. We try to figure things out, and then we make choices, and we try to, get there that way. There's a role for that in the beginning of this practice to sort of understand the motivations behind it and the orientation. But then once we actually sit down to practice, there's not a role for that part of the mind. That's the part of the mind that needs to just relax and let go so that the essential nature can begin to shine through, to see it directly, this unconditioned nature, so to speak. Whereas, our thinking and our worldviews and our goals, these are all conditioned. These are all conditioned by this whole architecture of story we have about our world. So the gift of this meditative process is that we're letting all of that be, that whole architecture of the story. We don't have to go in and check on it and think about things and plan things. We're just letting it be, and we're choosing some simple focus to anchor our mind in, because it's hard to just stop thinking like that. So we give our mind something to do, and the breath is the universal starting point. You can use other things. There's tons of different ways to focus your mind. You can focus on any of the senses, and you can choose a sense object like a rock or a glass of water or a color. You could visualize a face. You could just focus on hearing and turn towards the nature of hearing. But I think breathing is really the best starting point. And then from there, usually if people need to find something that suits them better, usually from the initial practice of breathing, they'll get drawn to some other approach to focusing. So it's really a simple process. We make it complex with our thinking, but the practice is very simple. You just follow your breathing. And in the beginning, to help, you count on the exhale. So you focus on just feeling the inhale, and then when you breathe out, you count 1. And then same thing, next inhale, just feel it, and then breathe out, count 2. You continue that pattern until you hit 10, and then you start over. And then once you're following it really well and you're not losing track, then you can let go of the counting and you just feel the breathing. And you know that you're going to get distracted. So every time you get distracted, it's not a bummer. It's just when you realize you're distracted, it's kind of like the attention that was there for the distraction, that was part of the distraction, your attention going to this other thing. Once you realize you're distracted, it's like you can take that attention and feed it into your focus of your meditation. Because when you first sit down, you have all these things running in your mind at some level. And you will have the ability to hold your focus for maybe a few seconds, especially if you've never meditated before. Then you'll be distracted. And it's kind of like you've sunk down into this deeper layer of your mind where the attention is on something else. And so it slides off onto that other thing, and then you realize, and now you can take that layer of attention and put it back to breathing. And then you'll have another distraction, and then you take that back. And eventually it's kind of like you're stacking all of these layers, and the awareness of your breathing becomes clearer and clearer to where you get to this point where you're aware of the breathing very clearly, and you're aware that you're aware. Like there's really great clarity in the whole process. You're just right there with your breathing, and that's the goal. And the moment that you're right there with your breathing, and you're aware that you're right there with your breathing. And as you stay with that, your body will relax more and more. You'll have a pleasant feeling. And as the body relaxes, the mind begins to relax. And then as the mind begins to relax, this great contentment will emerge of just contentment with being where you are without seeking for anything. And what we begin to notice if we contemplate this, it's saying that our essential nature is whole and complete, that its nature is contentment. We don't have to go out there searching for something. If we simply let the patterns of striving and judgment and trying to figure things out, if we let those patterns cease, then what we have there is ease, contentment. So long as, our basic needs are taken care of. If we're incredibly hungry, it's going to be super hard to let those patterns cease because we're going to be needing to use those patterns to try to figure out how to get food. But if we have all of the basic things taken care of, then we can allow that kind of executive functioning component to come to rest, but to keep awareness on, and then we get to see the native condition of the mind. Just awareness of the essence of the mind, the sort of ground of the mind from which all of the functions that we're familiar with emerge from. And it's deeply peaceful. So you can take any of your problems there, where basically you have a problem and you just go to that spot, that you use that practice, and it gradually will decrease the anxiety around the problem. It gradually will create space for some sort of insight, recontextualization, which can lead to a new, more effective approach. So extremely valuable. I can't recommend it enough. In the beginning, you can use any pose. Gradually, you want to work towards a meditative posture where you're sitting upright, the spine unsupported. Having the hips a little higher than the knees helps that, because then you'll have your natural pelvic tilt and lumbar curve so that everything can just hang off of the spine. You got the ears over the shoulders. And if you take on this practice, you look back in 5 years, you'll be so happy you did it. You look back in 10 years, you'll be so happy you did it. It helps you have access to your full resources. Right? It's like you learn how to focus all of your energies to a single task. And then when you do that, your creativity increases, your ingenuity increases, your enjoyment of the process increases. Instead of living in this space where we're waiting for whatever we're doing to be done so we can enjoy ourselves, we find enjoyment in the process of doing. So I highly recommend it. If you're thinking about taking on a practice, do it. There's nothing really that's stopping you. It's free. It's nothing foreign. It's your own mind. You don't have to shave your head and be from China in order to meditate. I recommend starting it today. Get a cushion, find a comfortable way to sit or just lay down, and you will not regret it. Just be careful to not turn it into trying to get somewhere, right? Notice the mind that's trying to get somewhere and let it be okay, and return your focus to your breathing. Notice the mind that wants to prove itself, that thinks it's the greatest, and so it's going to be amazing at this practice, and it's going to, be better than everyone else. Like notice that mind, distinguish it, and return to your focus. Kind of like, there's an analogy used in Buddhism. It's like being the guard at the gates of a castle. As people are going in and out, you're mindful of them. You're mindful of the different characters that are going in and out. Now, the analogy breaks down a little bit, because if there's a bad guy, you have to jump in and stop him. And in this case, it's a little different. You're not really jumping and stopping them. It's just by noticing them, that is the stopping them. The problem with a thought we could say is a bad thought. All right, a bad thought is something that's going to lead to a bad outcome. Bad outcome is something that hurts yourself or hurts the people around you, creates some sort of problem for you, the people around you, or is just based on illusion. It's just going to kind of create confusion. So if we notice a thought that would lead to a bad outcome, we're mindful of it, we just, all right, we're not on that train now. If we don't notice it as a thought, we just experience it as ourself, like this is reality. Then we're on that train and we're going with that thought. And if we're angry, well, we're going to reap the consequences of actions out of anger, right? If we're craving something, then we may make some choices that aren't balanced and that cause us a problem in the future. But if we can witness the thought arise and notice that the awareness was present before the thought arose, the thought arises and we watch it and it falls away and another thought arises and the awareness remains, okay, we don't really have to treat that thought like we don't have to build our future on it. It's just like a suggestion. It's like our mind is continually producing suggestions on how to interpret the environment or what sort of actions to take. And in Buddhism, there's this term, when it's translated into English, it's called cultivation, where we're cultivating those sort of suggestions that are beneficial. So the ones that are thoughts about helping others, the ones that are thoughts about letting go of desire, about generosity. And then the thoughts that are going to harm other people, we're not trying to shut them down. We're not trying to jam them somewhere deep into our unconscious. They can come out and we can notice them, but we just notice and distinguish them. And in the noticing them, you can see that, like, okay, yeah, this isn't the thought to cultivate. I don't have to resist it. It's just going to fade away. If I don't nurture this, if I don't give it my attention, it's not going to grow. So there's no tug of war. There's no ongoing battle. It's just, all right, I'm just not going to feed into that. I can notice it, I can cognize it, so I'm not resisting, I'm not pulling away, but I'm not feeding into it either. And then there's freedom. And so then we're free to really make a choice based on what's most important to us. So, moral of the story, today, start 5 minutes, comfortable position, follow your breathing, you won't regret it. Thank you very much for taking time to watch this video. And if you found it interesting, press the like button, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos.